Welcome back to Dr. SuperCoach, and in this video I'll be discussing the upcoming captaincy decisions for round 16, coming right up. What's up guys, it's JB from Dr. SuperCoach here, and if this is your first appointment, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our upcoming updates and captaincy videos. Now today's episode is again focused on our captains coming up for round 16. And we're starting in pretty obvious style, I'd say, with Brisbane versus Richmond. I think a lot of vice captaincies are going to be here on the man Josh Dunkley. We know that Richmond don't tag in the midfield. I think Jacob Hopper coming back and Dion Prestia going out actually helps Josh Dunkley because I think Hopper's just a bit slow, a bit underdone. Regardless, the midfield matchup I think is perfect for Dunkley, and with the form that he's been in, I know it was only a 120. Oh, there's a subtle flex there. 9 out of 10 league wins. Who beat me? 122 from him this week. I think we projected a lower score because St Kilda are quite restrictive, especially to opposition midfielders, but Richmond are not. And spoiler alert, West Coast are not either. So I think he's going to be involved in our captaincy again for at least 2 more weeks before we reassess. But here, Thursday, Vice Captain Dunkley, I think is very easy. I do like Tim Taranto, but he needs to get an early game, like a Friday night or something like that, where we can go bang when it's not involving Josh Dunkley. Next game, Sydney Swans versus Geelong. I don't hate Tom Stewart in this. I don't love Goulden in this. I know he just went huge. I think he's only backed up a big score once this year. So yeah, he had the back-to-back 156s, but generally speaking, he's very inconsistent. So he's not going to be. We're talking about captaincy options now because we've used the VC on Josh Dunkley. I think, by the way, last week it was Dunkley into. Who was it into last week? I can't remember who I even advised to roll into if Dunkley failed. Was Dunkley the captain? No, he wasn't. No, it was Petrarca into Dunkley. Otherwise, you had to go Dunkley into Laird. Yeah, so that they all worked out. And I liked both the Brayshaw and the Zero picks as well, and they both worked out too. I had a good strike record last week. Actually, the vice captaincy score 122. Was the lowest of the other, of all 4 options inclusive. So there you go. Maybe last week was a bad week. Okay, so I don't like this game. I'm going to avoid this game completely, mostly because these 2 games here are going to source our captaincies this week. Now, they do unfortunately start at the exact same time, which is slightly annoying. We can't go one of these into the other because I think both of them are great matchups. I think I lean Bontempelli here. Fremantle have not been restricting their opposition midfielders. Darcy Parish was going really well last weekend, as well as Zach Merritt, who had 30 and a goal, I believe. Now, Zach has been in pretty good form, actually, but Optus Stadium doesn't matter for Fremantle. This one at home, at Marvel, they don't really have a tag. I think Aish potentially comes in this week, probably plays more of a wing role. To be seen, but I'll be very comfortable with Bontempelli here. If you are worried about Aish, I'm also very comfortable about Rory Laird here. Dawson, I know he's got a very, very high ceiling, but he's pretty much 110 plus or bust. So he's got 110, 114, 173, 152. All of these are great captaincy scores, but then 95 not good, which we all captained. 106 it's fine as a captain. 92, 89, 78, 97, 110. Like, they're all very low scores, too low to be banking on as captain. And the fact that he goes, sub-ton, 4 tons in a row, sub-ton, 2 tons, 2 sub-tons, 2 tons, 1 sub-ton, it's just too inconsistent. So I'm still going to back Laird, and Laird's form is considerably better now. He's overtaken him again for captaincy. So, look, it's going to be Josh Dunkley into Laird for me. And if I feel like Aish isn't going to do a job, or at least a good enough job on Bontempelli, I'll go there. I think Bontempelli is my preferred captaincy option, But I will hedge. I will go safe if it does look like that tag matchup. If we hear any coaches' comments leading into the game to sort of imply that a tag might be coming, I'll just pivot straight onto Laird, because I'm happy. I think Bont's a 10 out of 10 with no tag. Laird's a 9 out of 10. So we're talking, they're both amazing options. There's no one I like for North Melbourne. No one I really like enough for Fremantle. Brayshaw and Strong, I'm sure, ton up. But are they safe captaincies? Are they going to guarantee do the ton? I wouldn't think so as a guarantee. Here comes a tough one. I really do like Nick Dacos's ceiling, and in games that he's not tagged, he's just gonna go silly. He's such a good player, but you just never know where it's gonna come from. He's another one that's an unbelievable vice captaincy option, but I don't like captaining him. Holman could just try and sit on him for the whole game here, and we wouldn't look twice at it. It'd be probably almost a winning tactic by Gold Coast, or would at least give them an opportunity to win. So, no, I don't like Nick Dacos. I don't like anyone. I mean, look, I know Zach Butters and even Dan Houston do incredibly well against Essendon, but again, this is the type of game that you want to land before a Brisbane play on a Sunday, and you can go VC just guilt-free. But we're talking about captaining Zach Butters, who is still injury-prone. Last time I checked, or Dan Houston, and we're sort of trusting a halfback defender to go well enough. So, although I think they do, the MCG is a bit of a different ball game as well. Zach Butters is obviously my pick in this game if you had to pick someone. I think Port with Willem Drew, many defensive-minded midfielders, could easily try to stop Merritt for a couple of quarters in there and just disrupt him enough to ruin a captaincy score. So I'm not huge on this game. I can understand Zach Butters though. I can definitely get my head around that one. Nothing here, especially without James Sicily. Carlton, no. There's a potential of Nash going on Walsh or something like that. They're just not captainable. Petrarca against GWS, I think, is fine. I think GWS have been a bit underrated with their midfield. Well, I mean, they didn't play last week, did they? So let's go to round 14. They were up against Fremantle. Did Brayshaw do good things there? I think this was a game that I circled as like, oh yeah, they'll do great things. Brayshaw 107, Sarong 84. I think they're restrictive enough to not love that matchup. And then St Kilda vs West Coast, people are going to say Sinclair. You can't trust Sinclair's role. I think this is a rare West Coast game where I'm not looking to captain anyone. St Kilda just have a bit of a funny sort of team, funny sort of layout. And I think Sinclair is better in the games that are competitive as well. If this game blows out early, or should I say when this game blows out early, I don't think it's the type of game Sinclair's just going to go bang 150, like some players did last week against West Coast, Errol Gordon. Not to say that he can't do that, but I'm not confident about that. I don't have a strong feeling about that. So I think we're getting our vice captaincy out on the Thursday into a captain Saturday afternoon footy, which is a bit exciting. I think it's getting it out of the way early in the round is always good. I get the feeling we're not going to have to worry about anything beyond here. Dunkley is just in incredible form. And I just want to stress as well, even though you have better captain scores in your team, better than what you ended up taking, like I took Dunkley, you missed Gordon. I have a lot of people commenting saying, oh, Gordon against West Coast, I wish I just did it. You're not captaining or vice captaining to get the 150 every single week. Some weeks there are going to be weeks where you are vice captaining or captaining for a 120 and you're happy with that. The 44 points I would have gained here by going Gordon over Dunkley, if I do this 3 or 4 times, so say I pick the North Melbourne game to target, I pick the Richmond game to target, I pick a Collingwood game to target, West Coast game, like it really depends. It's not going to come out positively. And say some of these are captaincy games, North Melbourne captaincy 96. The points that you lose by going the risky guys over time adds up to more than what you gain. So although some people would have jumped on the 164, some people are really good at navigating it and picking the right times. But for me, it's all about locking in the 120 plus. Once you've done that, you know you've got a good captaincy. Let everyone else chase these scores. Let other people, I know some people that, potentially captain Rowan Marshall this week, just not particularly advisable. People will chase scores. People will chase scores from Cogs, who's had he's not really had a big ceiling this year, but a big ceiling in the past. And this is where the 80s come in. That's how you make up ground. If you're consistently hitting 120 to 130 captaincy scores with the occasional predictable spike, I think Lockie Neal generally has a predictable spike at some point in the season. But with that, so Dunkley, I think, was a bit of a POD option when we got on him a few weeks ago against Gold Coast, was a very good one for us. 153, you want to lock those away, but you don't need this. 153 is not a necessity every week. The 122 this week, although there were players who scored higher, for everyone that got on a Brayshaw or rolled the dice and instead of taking the 122, jumped on a high score, for everyone who did that, there were equal amount of players who lost 18 points going so wrong, or lost points elsewhere. And maybe this week isn't the best example for it, but there are plenty of examples of players chasing the points and not ending up in the green. So I would always advise just play safe, play for those 120s. Everything else is a bonus, but you don't have to go squeeze every point out, because you gain more ground being consistent than you do by being erratic, and those players end up losing ground over time. That's going to do it for today's video. Again, question of the day: who did I miss out? Who are you going to vice captain and captain this week? Did you get on my last week's? Did you go against me and beat me last week? It would be very interesting to see. What would you change? Essentially, I would love some feedback on if there are any statistics that people think that I'm overlooking or overrating. Please do comment below. It does help with the YouTube algorithm as well, so we're very appreciative. If you do want to support us in other ways, we do have the merch store and the Patreon with links down below. But as usual, guys, thank you very much for tuning into the video, and I'll catch you next week.